started and it I will try to get it. There we go. All right. We will move this so I can push buttons and do both sides of everything a little bit easier. Welcome, everybody. You've got me live from the Hilliard branch of the library, along with on Zoom. So wander into the room and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Say, I think I set up after. So if you want to scan it, any photo program usually will, if you scan this one, it'll take you to a sign-in form for the night. We're switching to digital to help A, avoid handwriting issues, and B, to keep everybody from touching the same surfaces over and over again. So trying to keep it nice and simple. You caught it over there. All right. It is being recorded, and we should have, we recorded one last week that was just Zoom. So there should be a broadcast of it up on our website, on the Columbus page for it. So we're going to get started here. So thank you for attending tonight. We've got some folks live in the room here in Hilliard, and then we've got some of you guys online. So if you have any issues with audio, please let me know. This is the Columbus Area Solar Co-op for 2023. If you are joining us online, please keep your audio turned off. Submit your questions in the chat. We will take breaks at the end of each of the 3 sections to answer those. And we are recording this webinar so that we can share the link with everybody that's RSVP'd. So just to give you a quick breakdown. So I'm Mariah Williams. I'm with Solar United Neighbors. I'm the program associate here in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, well, we'll hand that to you guys and you can share it back and forth to get scanned in for the evening. So our partners here in the Columbus area are Sustainable Columbus, Green Columbus, Impact Community Action, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, more lovingly known as MORPC, Green Energy Ohio, the Ohio Environmental Council, Power Clean Future Ohio, and Drive Electric Columbus. So what is Solar United Neighbors? We are a vendor neutral national nonprofit. We help people go solar, and we join together to fight for energy rights. So we got started back in 2007. Anya, our founder, her son came home from watching An Inconvenient Truth and was like, hey, Mom, let's go solar on our household. And she was like, sure, sounds great. And then she found that it was a much more complicated process than she had originally thought it would be. So she decided if they were going to go solar, that she would work with their entire neighborhood to help other people go solar. And that started the very first of our co-ops. So 50 homes in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood ended up going solar together. And then they founded Sun, which was at the time called DC Sun. And it developed into programs that managed solar in the District of Columbia. And then slowly but surely, people started reaching out from other cities around the country and saying, hey, if you can do this there, can you help us do it here? So now we're in 12 states, along with the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico was added this past year in our program. So nationally, we've helped 6,500 families to go solar through over 340 co-ops, which is 65 megawatts of solar. And here in Ohio, we have added 603 households to our solar roster. with 4.5 megawatts of installed capacity, with over $12 million invested in the local economy throughout the state. That has helped to create about 90 solar jobs. So one of the reasons that we want to work for this new energy system is so that we'll see less of children playing with those coal plants in the background or those gas power plants in the background, and so that we'll see more local jobs through clean solar providing the energy for households. So the three sections, we'll stop at the end of each one of these. The three sections we'll cover tonight are solar technology, solar economics, and how solar co-ops work. Our first section is solar technology. So solar photovoltaics, or the solar panels that we're also used to seeing in fields or on rooftops, convert the solar energy to electricity. And for those in the room, I'll pass one around. This is a little sample of what they look like, what they feel like. So those are the same materials that your household ones would be made of, but the household ones are obviously a little bit bigger. So the panels have an aluminum frame, and then they have glass that helps to encapsulate those actual solar cells. They have a backing sheet to help protect them, and they're made to last throughout whatever weather they're facing for 20 to 25 years and still be able to provide the energy that you expect them to. So there are other components, though, that we don't all know whenever we're first getting into solar. One of those is the racking system. So in order to hold those on the rooftop, they're not just throwing them up there. They have these racking systems. This is what it looks like if it's going onto your standard shingle roof or a slate roof. So on the shingle roofs, they penetrate through the roof, and they have a special sealant that they use around that to make sure there's nothing going to leak in, crawl in, or otherwise, damage the roof or make it not do its roof job. But those to help to hold it on there in the case of wind or storms. We see these ride out storms all over the country, be it Florida through hurricanes, or, dust storms in like Arizona, or even here for our snow and high winds and tornadoes. There are different types of racking solutions. So if you need something else, if you have a flat roof or a metal roof, they make them that'll hold on to things like your standing seams. So they'll just assess your roof whenever they come out. Or if you are putting them onto a small business, or maybe even some odd shaped households, and you have a flat roof, they can look at a ballasted system, which are ones that are held down by weights. They have to make sure that your building is obviously ready for the structural integrity of the extra weight, as well as the panels in those cases. And if you have a larger space that you're putting them in, you might want to consider ground mounts. And no matter which of these systems they put in, they're also going to run, obviously, the wire. They're going to put it inside of some sort of conduit to help protect it from critters. I know here in this area, squirrels are our number one friend, enemy, whatever you want to consider them. They do like to chew on it. So they have things like critter guard that they'll put around the edge of the panels to help block them in so they don't move in underneath of there and chew on things. And they put that around any of the stuff in the ground too. And then one of the more visible in your household pieces will be your inverters. So these usually are installed in the basement next to the electric panel. They might also be installed outside if you don't have a basement, or inside of your garage. These convert the DC energy that comes out of a solar panel into AC so that your household can use them. So you might get string inverters, or you might get micro inverters. They'll talk you through those whenever they're installing your system. A lot of times it goes off of what the needs of your household is, or what the preference of the installer is. And there's advantages and disadvantages to each one of them. On my household, I have string inverters with the DC optimizers. We have a little bit of shading on part of our roof from one of our neighboring homes. But that's all the other panels keep making solar energy while that shading is happening on the little corner, and it optimizes the energy that's coming out of the rest of the system at that point. So it doesn't really make a big difference overall. And then your solar will connect to your house through your electric panel. So if you have a completely full panel, if you have an older home, if you have one of these panels, my daughter has a 60 amp panel. So she would not have room for solar in her condo if she was allowed to put it on the roof. But so she would have to increase her panel. So if you've got a little older panel, be prepared for them to tell you that you might have to update your panel, but that's something that your installer, whenever they come out to do your readiness report with you, will look at your panel and help you make sure there is the space you need. If you've got a lot of things already in your panel that are big loads, like let's say that you have an electric dryer, an electric stove, and then you have an electric car and a hot tub, you're probably looking at a pretty full panel, and you may be looking at an increase in that too. That's what we're getting ready to go through in my household. So one of the things that we will assess whenever we first get your address and enter you into our system is your roof orientation. We'll make sure that you're hopefully south facing. That's the best here in Ohio. East and west also work pretty well. That you have little to no shading, and that you have enough space to mount panels. Every once in a while we get somebody that has like dormers by the boatload on their house, or they've got a really weird round shaped roof, or they've got a very short roof or a strange roof in some way, shape, or form that might not have that kind of size. But overall, we're only looking for about 250 square feet. So it's not that much to put in a very small system to begin with. So, and then they're going to also evaluate your roof age. We can't see that through the pictures that we'll look at to begin with to assess your roof. But if your roof is much older than, I'd say 10, 12 years, they're probably going to help you look at evaluating your roof, its condition, make sure that it's ready for solar, because you don't want to have to be putting the panels up, taking the panels down, having them stored by somebody while they do the roof repairs and then put back up. So they want to have that nice long life left in your roof so that you don't have to go through that. And then some of the important terms that we just toss about, like they're normal, are kilowatts, which is how a system is measured in size, kilowatt hours, which is the amount of it it's producing over a set period of time. And the way I like to remember those is a hose and a swimming pool. So if you have a kiddie pool size house, a small little load that you're filling, you can fill it with a standard garden hose. But if you were trying to fill an Olympic size space, your kilowatt hours worth of space, then you're going to want a bigger hose, a bigger system, because it's not going to be super easy to fill that Olympic size pool with a straw or a garden hose. So if you have a small load at home and you're one of those kiddie pools, great, excellent. We'll get you a standard size system that fits those needs. And if you have an Olympic size pool worth of needs, then we're going to find you that bigger hose, that bigger system, hopefully to match those needs. The average system size here in Ohio is 6 kilowatts to 7 kilowatts. That's based on if you're trying to offset all of your energy, just a portion of it. If you're trying to, reach a certain budget of the price of the system or the price of the payment, and what else, that you're factoring in. So there's different parts and pieces to that, but we'll help you to make sure that you're getting your system right sized for what you're wanting. This little guy is supposed to be about 6 feet tall and shows that next to the panels, if you were looking at a 4.2 kilowatt system, which is 12 panels, each panel is about 5 feet by 3 feet. So that's how just an average sized person compares to a panel. And then one of the other things that we have to cover is net metering. So net metering is when you're making more energy than your household can use. If you've got an electric car, you can plug that puppy in and use basically an endless amount of whatever you're creating off of your household roof. I'll see if my system will pull up here and we can see what we're currently producing. But otherwise, you're probably going to produce more in a day or in any given moment. Even on a rainy day here, we've got that we're still producing 0.3. Well, it's bouncing back and forth. But so this is what the system output will look like. So over the course of today, I've made 18 kilowatt hours worth of power, which was enough to run our house. We usually use about 1 kilowatt hour per hour during the day. So overall, unless we plug in one of our cars, this is enough to create some credits ahead at some points during the day, because we obviously have not had 18 hours, yet in the day that we've been using energy. So those go out to the grid and are saved up as like energy credits, basically, so that overnight, whenever I'm not producing, I still have credits ahead from the extra I produce during the day. So that energy goes out to the grid through a process, like I said, called net metering. It goes through your regular meter because most of us have the smart meters that are ready for that. If you do have an older meter where it still has the little spinning wheels, you'll get to see them spin backwards. Most of the time, AEP changes those out, though, the minute you get a solar array. So here we've got a very basic breakdown of what an electric bill might look like once you've gotten solar. So let's say that over the course of a month, you used your solar energy whenever possible, and then you shoved some out to the grid. But whenever you couldn't use the energy from your solar, you pulled another 1,000 kilowatts from the grid. So you would owe them for that 1,000 normally. Well, let's say that over those sunny days, you exported an extra 500. So they gave you credit for those, and you're only now going to pay for the 500 kilowatt hours that are remaining that you didn't offset with your credits. And obviously, this bill does not have all those fees that they like to add on, for transmission, distribution, and everything else that they come up with. But this does show the generation side of things in a very basic way. So what happens whenever the power goes out? Your solar is going to shut down. That happens for one reason and one reason only, because we don't want to fry linemen. They're not bad guys. We don't want to see them toast up there on those wires. And if you're still shoving energy out to the grid, they would have no way to protect themselves from it. So your solar will isolate and turn off. It'll dead end and you won't have your energy. But if you're wanting to still have your energy, there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can get battery backup, which would let you use your energy overnight, anytime that you're not producing, during storms, during extended outages. Or there's a product called Enphase IQ8. It's a fancy little inverter that has a dark start battery and has the ability to island your house and let you still have access to the solar during the day. But obviously it doesn't have a big battery system, so you would still be without power at night, but it's Enphase IQ8. And if that's something that you're wanting, whenever you get your solar installer out there to talk to you about your system, they will talk you through all of that. So just tell them that you're looking to have at least access to your electricity during the day whenever it is out and available, but that you're not interested in batteries. And then they can talk you through whatever, because who knows, by the time we get things installed, they may have some new number system, but right now it's the IQ8s. Some of the reasons you might want a battery backup in your house. We got one in ours because we have, in that critical loads at home section, we have a sump pump that the minute it thinks about raining, my sump pump starts running. And once or twice I had some water come out of my sump pump well because my power was off, and I said, enough is enough of that. I want a battery. I don't want to have to worry that that's going to happen again. I don't want my whole basement to flood. So that was important to me whenever I installed my system. If you're in one of those frequent utility outage areas of town, I think Clintonville is one of those areas that likes to go off every time the tree branches get shaken. Beautiful area, great tree canopy, seems to have some power issues. Some of our communities of opportunity are known for getting their power off a little more frequently than others. So that can help out with that. Or if you're, worried about zombies or some other disaster that might be coming up, you can be ready for them. I see we've got at least one person in the room who's thinking about those zombies now. So he's going to be ready for those. And it can also have the potential to save you money from the grid. We do not have this in Ohio. I don't see us getting this anytime soon. Let's be honest, we're not that progressive. But in some places like California, they're starting to allow them to sell excess energy back to the grid. So you have the potential to be able to help offset other people's peak energy use and make a little bit of money. But we're not there yet, but yeah, I don't see that anytime soon. If you are looking for more information on the batteries, you can find those at solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. And don't worry about remembering that too much, because if you use the little handy search feature on our website to look for backup, storage, battery, any number of keywords, it'll pop it right up for you. And it's like a nice little PDF you can download. And then one of the other optional pieces of this co-op will be EV charging. So if you don't have an EV yet, but you're thinking about adding one, or if you don't think you want an EV, but you have a friend with an RV, or you're wanting to add a kiln or a second dryer in your garage, one of the things that you can opt into instead of an actual charging unit is one of these nice little power boxes. So this is what's on the side of my house. It has both regular outlets, which lets me have access to power. Like I use them for Christmas lights. I didn't have an outlet on that side of the house. So now I can light up across my driveway without running a cord clear across the driveway. And then this one is a 1450 outlet. So I can plug in my portable charger and charge my vehicle in the driveway. So this is a nice option that you can future-proof your house and be ready for whatever you want to plug in. Without having to add the EV charging right now if you don't want an actual unit on your wall. The installation savings are great. Last year through the co-op, it was $350 for up to a 25-foot run from your power box, which I don't know if anybody's priced wiring recently or ever had to hire an electrician. They're really expensive. You've already got the guys there. If they're pricing it in like that, it's a really nice time to be able to add that without having to worry about that, you know, being a price later. It also lets you have it all rolled into one liability piece. So you've got that tax incentive and you don't have to try to fill out 3 different forms for it because it's all in your solar. So you've got that line item at the bottom that just says the total, and that's all the government cares about. And then there's usually a bulk purchase for those pieces as well, which makes them that little bit cheaper. Probably how they got us in at $350 last year instead of several $100s. All right. I see my chat is super busy on Zoom. Fatima, if there's anything you need me to answer, feel free to shout it out.
Sure. Do you want to take the questions now? We have a couple of questions in here.
Yeah, if you want any of the solar parts and pieces, the equipment.
Right. So what if somebody has a generator, is storage, how would storage pair up with them?
So in the case of, I have Solar Edge as my equipment, but I think it works the same way with most of the different brands. So my transfer switch has a generator port. That was something that we wanted, not for a generator in my household, but because we thought that in the future, if there was a nice bi-directional vehicle, like, I don't know, the F-150 Lightning, then you would be able to plug into that generator port with your truck, and you are. I know that because we did make sure we future-proofed that a little bit. So you can take the power from your vehicle and put it in there, or you can take a power from a generator and put it into that port. So that's just something that you'll want to let your installer know whenever they come out to do like your readiness inspection. Talk to them and let them know, hey, we have a generator. Hey, we want to get this vehicle that does this. We're going to have can you make sure that we have the right parts and pieces? And they'll make sure that you're getting the right equipment to be able to do that.
Great. Thank you, Mariah. Another quick one. I'm not sure if someone's asking if there is a possibility of adding an electric panel outside near the meter instead of the main panel. Additional breakers on the main panel.
I'm not sure about an electric panel outside. I mean,
yeah, additional breakers. You know how you have additional breakers on the electric panel and you go in for that upgrade. So is it possible to expand the electric panel with additional breakers on the outside near the meter? I'm not quite sure.
Oh, so like a sub panel situation?
Yes, probably they're asking.
Yeah. So sub panels work. They'll interfere if you're trying to do whole house generation, especially during an outage, because like the transfer switch is usually a whole house or a emergency loads panel. But yeah, they could probably do a sub panel, but that's something they'll want to talk to the installer about. A lot of times it's just easier to upgrade your entire service than it is to add on panels. But I mean, there could be an advantage in some cases. If they're meaning actual outside panels, I'm not positive. I would assume there's some sort of exterior panels, but I've never installed an exterior panel, so I wouldn't know that one.
All right, thank you. We have another question. Probably we'll take it after solar. Thanks, Mariah.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. Anybody in the room have questions? They are, and unlike in years past, the batteries are also eligible independently. So if you did your solar this year, got your tax money back next year, decided you wanted to add batteries, those batteries are also eligible for that 30% federal tax credit. So unless Mansion and company, reverse course, but I would, yeah, with the Inflation Reduction Act and any type of reversals they decide to pull. So we obviously can't control the government much as we might want to. But yeah, so the batteries as they stand right now do count. Whenever I got my system installed in 2020, we did the battery at the same time because it didn't count separately. So we did a battery and the solar all at once so that we could have the battery in that bottom line item. And they just gave us the 30% back on the battery and the full system that way.
Mariah, can you please repeat the questions being asked in the rooms so the online attendees can also hear the question?
Yes, so I was just answering, are the batteries also eligible for tax credits? And now we've got another question in the room.
Batteries that's stored inside, like the basement or in the garage is okay, or?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's gonna depend on your manufacturer. It's gonna depend on if they have any type of battery thermal management to them. Most of the time, they're going to want them to be inside if you can, to help protect them from weather and to keep them a more moderate temperature. It'll make them last longer and it makes them, better conditioned to be able to distribute the energy. Whenever batteries are cold, they don't like to give out energy the same way. That's why whenever you have like an electric car, you want to condition the battery before you're driving it in the winter, either by plugging it in or by turning on your battery conditioning. So it'll work better if it's in the basement, but they can put them into other places. And so I didn't repeat that one, I'm sorry. The question in the room was, can they put the batteries only in a basement or an interior space, or are garages or exterior spaces an option as well? So.
Think about in January when it's 40 below and cars in the driveway, how's it start?
Yeah.
Garage.
I mean, my car always starts. The electric always starts, we don't have that same, there's no fluids the same way. So we don't have that issue, but yeah.
Lithium iron. Kind of corrosive. I'd rather have it outside.
All right, so let's dive into some solar economics. So solar is a great investment. It used to be a boutique item and it was very expensive on a per watt basis, but we have seen it dip down and balance out from somewhere, in the $15 per watt range. Now we're down to usually about $3 on the market rate, and then a little less in the co-ops. So the return on investment is pretty solid. Most of our homeowners see it at around the 10-year mark, a little less, a little more, depending on what your loads are, what you're using it for, and how big your system is, what else you might be offsetting with it. So like in our case, we're looking at about a 4.5 or a 5-year payback because we have 2 electric vehicles in our household use off of it. So we're not paying for gasoline, we're not paying for electricity. We're just paying toward our solar loan, and all of those things are offset in our case. And then there is the 30% federal tax credit, which won't be stepping down now unless they do something. Please don't do anything, but just in case, 2032 is our deadline otherwise. So solar co-ops help to reduce the cost in a few ways as well. So there's those soft costs like advertising, education that the installers aren't having to do because we're out doing those things for them. And instead of taking them one customer at a time by being out doing these things or by advertising, we're taking them, 150 houses And, you know, usually 30, 40 of those decide to go solar through that process. So they're gaining a whole bunch of people all at once, which also helps them with labor costs because they're not having to hire those guys back on, let those guys go, find new labor, train new labor, and everything else. They're able to keep those guys on nice and steady throughout the year. And then the system components. Our installer last year for the Columbus Co-op was able to order an entire shipping crate, big cargo container of them, instead of ordering just a couple pallets like he normally would for a job. So he was able to save money, which allowed him to pass savings along to the co-op because he wasn't having to order them, you know, that one piece at a time. He was ordering 40 of them all at once. So, and the federal tax credit is currently and hopefully continuing to sit at 30%. In 2033, it'll step down to 26%. And in 2034, it would step down to 22%. Anybody that goes solar with this co-op, I would say most of the people will start being installed in the fall, maybe even early winter. We may have a little gap and in some systems next spring, depending on the weather. I mean, we've had pretty mild weather the past couple winters. I know my system was installed in November whenever they did it in 2020. So they're able to work later in the year, and we had systems being installed in January and February this year here in Ohio. So it's very weather dependent throughout the winter, but they'll keep plugging along if they can. So most people, I'd say, probably will be claiming it on their 23 taxes. There might be a few that claim it on their 24. So we're going to break down one example of pricing. So the average solar co-op right now in Ohio is sitting at $2.70 a watt, which is 30 cents less per watt than the market rate. I'm going to read down the 5 kilowatt system just because that's the closest to our average size here in Ohio. So at $2.70 a watt, that system would come in at $13,500 with a federal tax credit of $4,050, meaning your total net cost, if you applied that tax money toward it in the spring, would be $9,450. We estimate that on average, each year you're going to save around $750. I find these numbers to be very conservative, but that's again going to depend on your use of the energy, if you've got a really high energy household or if you've got a lower energy household. But we say that over the course of that lifetime of 25 years of the panel, that you're going to save about $22,600, which means that you end up to the good about $13,000, give or take, anything else that you might be doing with it. So that's just one little breakdown. Obviously, systems very seldom come out to even numbers because the panels are like 370 or 380 watts. So there's very, very few cases where they'll break down to like an exact 5 or 10, but those are just some nice little sample ranges of what you might see from it. And then some of the financing options that you might be able to take advantage of. REAP is unlikely. We're a big metro area. That's mainly for farms. That's the R's for rural. So you're having to get outside of town into lower populated areas. So we won't go into that one too much. If you do qualify for REAP, if you are a farm, send us an email. We'll get a hold of you and help you break it down. Home equity lines of credit, refinancing to include the solar, are usually pretty good options. Those are all obviously very rate-based. So whenever markets good, bad, or in between, you can look into that. Installer financing, some of the installers offer financing. I always say to watch out for their finance fees. Some of them a little better than others about that. The Clean Energy Credit Union, some of the local installers will work with them. They only do things there for clean energy. So heat pumps, electric cars, solar, wind, that sort of thing. So they kind of specialize in it. Sometimes they have a little bit better rates than other places because of it. Or the IncoLink subsidized loans. So those give you a certain percentage point off for the first few years of your loan. The last time I checked, it was 3% for the first 4 years of the loan. It's kind of weird sets of numbers and it changes over the course of time, but it's always worth looking into. If you are going through that subsidized loan program, just talk to the installer. They'll hook you up with the right banks that can work with that. I think Huntington is usually one of our better ones at working here in Columbus with those loans. But it just takes people that know what they're doing with that paperwork to put it through. All right, and then this is a 4%, good luck finding that nowadays, loan, as well as a 7%, which is a little closer to where we're seeing. So that shows you what your payments might look like if you were financing that $13,500 or that $27,000 system for the 5 or 10 kilowatt sizes. Your payment, if you've got like a 10-year loan at 4%, would be about $96. Or if you were at a 7%, you're looking at about 110. And those numbers are all going to fluctuate a little bit depending on what you are financing, what your credit score is, what the rate is whenever you do sign and get your loan. Some of the places like to do bridge loans, which is where they depend on you to give them back that tax money the next year. So they'll give you a tiny little short-term loan that maybe has no interest as for that amount that's your tax credit, and then they'll give you the rest of it on a bigger, longer term loan, so that you're able to, apply it directly to it. But that just gives you a simple breakdown of a couple different things that you might see. All right. Fatima, you are flying in that chat room. My number has really increased. So do we have any solar economics questions in the room?
Yes, we do. And someone's asking, or rather saying that Ohio Eco Link rates are around 10%, and there is no guarantee to get 3%. Any thoughts you have on that?
Well, I don't know. I can check on the EcoLink website again tomorrow. It does change pretty regularly, unfortunately, but we can look into that. If that's something that you are wanting, if you're wanting that EcoLink loan, then we can help you to discuss that with the installer once that time comes, and we can see what the program is at right then.
All right. And Mara, I'm not sure if you can give us a percentage of what you are seeing there as a rate of interest. Someone saying they got a 10% on a quote recently. So is there a range which you can give us what you are seeing right now?
I have no idea. That's really going to depend on, if you have a relationship with that financial institute, if what your credit score is sitting at, as well as what you're trying to finance. I would guess that you may see those 10% rates. It seems a tad bit high to me, but I've not tried to finance anything on my house lately. Okay, so we've got somebody in the room saying that they just paid off a 6%. So, I mean, I would check around, talk to credit unions. Usually they have a little bit better rate. Talk to anybody that you do banking with routinely, wherever your primary accounts are, because a lot of times they'll give you a little bit better rate. Maybe dig into what's in your credit report and see what you've got going on that might be, affecting that a little bit. But it never hurts to look around if you don't like what rate you're getting offered.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all those tips, Mariah. And once we get the questions from your room, please repeat the questions so all of us here can hear those. Thank you.
Okay, I will try that. We'll see if I can get better at that. Do we have any questions in the room on finances? Yes.
What's your calculation for the 25-year number? Last time I looked, most solar panels had a 20-year life. That seems kind of 5-year off.
So the question in the room is about us basing everything off of 25 years. And so the primary reason we do that is that is a 20-year warranty. That is not a 20-year life expectancy. So it's like your electric cars or your regular cars where they'll say it's got a 10-year powertrain warranty. That doesn't mean at 10 years and one day your powertrain is going to go out. They don't want that because they don't want a chance that that's 9 years, 364 days, and they have to pay for it. So we are fully seeing systems that were installed 20 plus years ago, still working just fine on rooftops for people. So we're just estimating that over the course of their lifetime, that they're still going to be making some energy, maybe not quite the original energy, but most of the companies are guaranteeing them for 20% or 80% of the original load off of those panels for that full 20 years. So they're not saying that they're not going to be working anymore. They're just saying they're not going to be working quite as original, which I think is the case for most of us once we pass 20 as well, that we don't work quite as original. So, but that's why most of those numbers are sitting at 25, because we know that people are going to leave them there for the lifetime of the panel. As long as they're still working a little bit, they're going to not want to change them out. So, but that's the 25 number. Oh, our warranties almost always are 20 years now. And then some of the things like solar insure will let people warranty them and insure them for up to 25 years. So the inverters sometimes have separate warranties than the panels themselves. We took out a 20-year warranty on our inverters because we wanted them to match. We didn't want to have to worry about that. I think we put our battery at 15 years. They had like pieces for the different parts of it. So, but that's something you can always address with them and make sure that you're getting the coverage you want on them. But they'll all come with a base warranty, a base guarantee that's usually 20 years now. I don't know. It was something offered on the LGs whenever we picked ours up. So I know. I was like, we might as well. Well, we're seeing the original Nissan Leafs has been out since 2010, still out on the road in some cases. So, they degrade, but they're still moving. So are some of the original Teslas, like the Roadsters. So they are, but no, they've got ours. I think ours was at 70 or 75%. I'd have to check through my paperwork, but it's got a pretty good balance on it. So, all right. So why a solar co-op versus going solar independently? So we do get a better value on the installations. Like I said, usually we're sitting at about $270, where market rate is $3. You have support throughout the process. So if you've got questions today, if you've got questions tomorrow, if you've got questions a year after your installation, we're still there. So you can write to, us or give us a call, and somebody's going to be there to answer it. Not that your installer wouldn't be, but they're busy people. And that's not their job necessarily. They typically do installs and they don't circle back out to say, you got any questions? How's your app working? But we're there to answer those types of things for you, and to make sure that, we're happy to look over any of the contracts with you. So you can bring that contract back to us if you've got one from somewhere else and you want to compare it to the co-op offer. We'll sit down with you and compare those out to make sure that, you're getting what you need for your household. And we're just there to help you go solar. We can connect you with fellow solar enthusiasts. There's 14 people online that are all interested in this. There's 6 people in our room that are all interested in this. So you can, get to know those other folks. We have, these little classes like this throughout the co-op. We have a big party, typically at the end of each one. This year we had one for 3 years, just because COVID played this little game with us called "You're not allowed to be all in a big room together." So we had to put off some of those parties for a little while, but we get everybody back together when we can. And you get to become part of a growing solar movement. We're hoping we keep seeing more and more of these rooftop arrays for all the different reasons. So the solar co-op process looks sort of like this. I usually like to try to change these out to steps instead of months, but we'll go with months for today. So the launch is April of 23. So we just launched on the 19th. So just a couple of days before Earth Day, we had a big launch event. We kicked this co-op off. Right now we're in this months 1 through 3 section where we're learning about the co-op, we're signing up, we're spreading the word. And then here in month 2, so May 25th, you can mark your calendars whenever you're going through your form online. We'll collect from you your power bill, what type of roof you have. If you don't know, that's okay. You can take a guess at it. We'll look at it again later for you. And one of the other options is you can select, I want to be on the selection committee. So that is a volunteer position that everybody in the co-op has the same ability to join in. We'll send you all those RFPs, all those bids that we collect. We'll put them onto one handy dandy spreadsheet so you can compare each of the different companies' offers. And then we have like a voting night, that's on May 25th, where we'll talk about them. Sometimes we'll eliminate some of the companies and get it down to just one or two that everybody likes more, and then pick from those. But at the end of the night, we come out with one company that's going to do our solar co-op. And on top of the nice little spreadsheet of information, we'll also send you the full packet of everything they send us. I was a spreadsheet person when we went through the co-op. I liked that it was all there to compare, that I could see like everybody's price, I could see everybody's warranty, I could see how long they'd been in business, what their, different people who recommended them were. But my husband went to school to be an electrical engineer. So let me tell you, that 800-page packet that we got about every piece of equipment that every installer might be using, he sat down and read through that stuff. He was in heaven. So if you're a data person, you're going to get all the data you wanted by being on the selection committee. And if you're not a data person, then you're just, I want to know the basics about these people and have a good way to compare them. We've got that too. So it'll depend on what you're wanting to see, but we check their references, not only the ones that they give us, but we also check the Better Business Bureau, Angie's List, Solar Reviews, a number of other sites to see that they are companies. And we've worked with a lot of these folks on multiple different things over the years. We've had solar legislation in play for like HOA solar access. So we had companies that worked with us on that. We have a jobs training program here in town called Empowered, where they're training future solar installers from the low to moderate income neighborhoods. So we have installers that we've worked with to help place those kids whenever they're graduating. And then, we have done several co-ops. So we've had different companies we've worked with for those. So we use our own reference on that as well. So it's a nice little process, and we've got the RFP out right now. So all the installation companies have been sent that. We've been adding a couple new ones that have came in and sending them the RFP form as well. So hopefully we'll have a nice selection of companies that want to participate with this co-op. Our sign-up deadline will be in August on the 28th. So anybody that wants to go solar through this co-op will need to register and be getting their proposal and stuff by then and letting us know that they're doing it. But that proposal and that contract are with the installer directly. So you're not paying us. We don't install. We're just here to help you with the process, to walk everybody through, to make sure that everybody's getting the system they need at the price that they're promised it through the co-op. You'll sign your contract with the installer and they'll set up an installation date with you. Our permits, there's the word I'm looking for. Our permits are running really fast for Columbus. Some of the other suburbs are a little slower. Columbus just went gold through SolSmart. So part of that process meant that they had to have their stuff fine-tuned down to, they have near instantaneous permits for most of the installations. So if you're sitting there with the city of Columbus, it's pretty quick. If you're not in Columbus service, Upper Arlington has also got a SolSmart level. I think they're gold, might be silver, but we've got some other suburbs that are either working on their SolSmart status or, and that's an independent thing issued by the government. I think the Department of Energy does it. So they have a whole, program that they look at with that, but they're all very competitive with each other. They want to do better and better things with their permit processes. So that's been running pretty quick. AEP has not been running too slow. So all your approvals have been going through there relatively quick for AEP. So it's just all about how fast they can get the product in. We do still have some occasional supply chain issues. And then there's the party, which we just had in April for our last 3 co-ops. I don't know when this one will be. We usually try to do it after everybody is installed. This one, we still had a few stragglers from the 22 co-op that weren't installed yet, but had dates. So we went ahead and held it since we could with the other year's worth of it. But pretty flexible process overall. I think that unless I'm mistaken, I am like done. So, but if you want more information, if you want to get completely registered for the co-op, that's at solarunitedneighbors.org/Columbus. And if you want to contact me or Fatima or anybody else off of the Ohio team, that's at ohteam@solarunitedneighbors.org. And this part of the presentation is done, but we are happy to answer the 15 lines more of questions that I see in the chat, or I've got one in the room I'm going to take here, Fatima, and then I'll be with you guys.
Sure, just repeat the question.
On the previous slide, it said you had 30 people involved. So how many people?
We are already at 50 that have made it completely through the registration process. And then we've got a bunch of roof reviews pending right now. So we're solid. We've got our 30 and then some. There is no max, not unless whoever's chosen as the installer could cut us off. If they said, hey, look, you've gotten, I mean, we had 250-ish people last year, but the installer still took everybody in that wanted to do it. We ended up with 40 households going solar through it, and he was able to handle all of those jobs as well. But it's all whatever they can handle in their proposals, and then whatever they can handle in their actual work. But right now we'll just be signing up like mad until we get through that and hear different.
So the RFP, what is in that? Are you just doing roof-based, or are you doing ground-based, or?
There'll be a little bit of both. So it'll have price breakdowns for the roofing, which is the most common here in this area. So that'll be the primary price. And then they'll have a line item for what it costs for trenching and running that extra conduit if you were doing ground mounts. And if there's any additional mounting fees, they'll mention those too. We can help you total that up, or whenever they come out, they'll give you a total that'll compare it out. It'll have the pricing for batteries, some of the higher end panels, some of the different types of inverters. It'll have pricing for the electric vehicle charging, so that you can mix and match and build your system out to what you want it to have on it. So the question in the room is just, since it says 30, how, if we were there, since we said we had issued the RFP, and then they were asking about what is on the RFP, and if you did need some other type of system like a ground mount system, would that be listed? So sorry about that. I never remember to repeat the question until I'm already done. I'm like reverse Miss America up here. So Fatima, do you have any questions you need assistance with?
Yes, please. Can you talk a bit more about HOAs? What are the documents or processes HOAs would need, and how we can help homeowners in HOAs?
All right. So last year we worked on the question for the room. Sorry, Fatima, you're a little bit quiet because we don't have speakers in the room. We just have the laptop. So the question from the laptop from Zoom was, how do we help HOAs, or what is around for HOAs so that people can go solar in those? So last year, one of the bills we were working on that we did get to pass was House Senate Bill 61. It was proposed by Blessing and Antonio. Those are people from opposite ends of the state. Nikki Antonio's from up north. She's up like the Cleveland area. And Senator Lou Blessing is from Cincinnati, Republican and Democrat. So they crossed the aisle to come together on this HOA bill. It had all kinds of different things in it, but the parts and pieces we were interested in were for solar access. So basically, if your HOA is like mine is about 30 years old, there is no mention of solar at all in my bylaws. So it's not approved, it's not disapproved. There's no mention of it. But whenever I first went to them, they were like, well, it's not in there, so no. And I was like, but instead of no, why not? It's not in there, so yes. And 18 months later, they finally agreed with me. They decided it was a roofing material that we could in fact change it. We can change our roofs, if they're got something going on, so why not, adapt and do that? But not all the HOAs like that as a process. And so the solar access bill will help to make it so that HOAs can't just give a blanket no if they don't have an answer down, that they have to come up with a process. They can still get to a no as the answer, but they can't just blanket no for no reason other than no is easier than maybe. But if you've got a particular case, if you have an HOA, I'm happy to help you sit down and look through your bylaws to see if it's mentioned. Most of them it's not. So then we can help to inform them about the new solar access laws, because a lot of them just are not informed. I mean, how many pieces of legislation do they pass a day? And most of us have no idea what they are unless they out and out affect us. You know, our new bill up this year, well, it's not up yet. We're expecting it to drop any day now, is for community solar, so that we can help brownfields to be able to develop into solar, or communities of opportunities that they can't put it on their own rooftop, that they could go together into a community space and have solar that help to benefit them. So that's what my director, Tristan, is working on in his spare time. He has just 2 co-ops up in the Cuyahoga area this year, where I have him in Dayton here, and then into the Ohio Valley. So since I'm driving a little bit more, he's focusing on the legislation this year. So he's diving into community solar and going to help try to support that to passage. But yeah, if you've got a particular HOA or condo case, drop us an email at that ohioteam@solarunitedneighbors.org address, and we will see what we can do to help you out. My room got quiet. Are you guys still there?
Yes, thank you so much for that explanation, Mariah, and all the great work you and Kristen are doing in Ohio. We don't have any more questions in the Zoom room here.
All right. Well, thank you guys in Zoom for sticking with us. We're going to let you go with 4 minutes left in your day. But I'm going to hang out here and see if there's any other questions here. Have a great evening, Zoom and Fatima.